Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, we're going live now.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your patience. Sorry for the delay in getting the meeting started tonight. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I think we have it all under control now. So thank you to everybody behind the scenes. Good evening and welcome to the Town of Ajax Committee of Adjustment meeting for Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is being held electronically and live streamed on the internet pursuant to the Committee of Adjustment terms of reference and meeting procedures. All regular practices and procedures of the committee continue to apply during this electronic meeting. If we encounter any other technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess while they are resolved. Thank you for your patience, and we will now proceed with the meeting. Before moving on to the application portion of the meeting, I would like to confirm whether there are any disclosures of interest from any of the committee members.
There is none.
Seeing none, I would like to ask for adoption of the August 31st, 2022 Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes. Thank you, Wasif. Seconder. Thank you, Cecil. Any comments at all in regards to the minutes from the last meeting?
I have none.
Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of adopting the minutes? Thank you very much. That is carried. The mandate for the committee is bound by the Planning Act to assess each application based on its ability to meet 4 tests. That the application is minor as nature, is desirable for the appropriate development or use of lands, and finally is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The process for tonight's meeting will be conducted in the following manner. The applicant and/or agent will be called upon, and at their option, they may provide a brief description of the minor variance application they have applied for. The committee members may ask questions of the applicant and/or agent, after which anyone with a direct interest in the application will be given the opportunity to speak either for or against the application. Once a motion is put forward by a committee member, there will be no further input from the applicant or anyone having interest in the application. After a decision is made, notice will be sent out and there will be a 20-day appeal period. Anyone having interest in the application may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the decision of the committee. After 20 days, the decision will become final and binding. If a building permit or other approvals are required, they may be filed during the appeal period. However, no building permits will be issued until the appeal period is over and the decision becomes final and binding. A respectful decorum for this evening's procedures is expected of all present at all times. So for tonight's meeting, the committee members that we have with us is Wasif Ahmed and Cecil Ramnath, and myself, Lori Roberts. I am the chair. And we have Eric Simpson from the town staff. He is a senior planner, secretary, treasurer. And I believe that is our only staff that we have with us tonight. We have this evening, I believe it is that we have 6 applications that we are going to be looking at. The first application that we are going to look at is A2622 for 1461 Harwood Avenue North, being presented by Grandview Children's First Consortium. The variance that is being requested with tonight's application is to permit a minimum setback from the southwest interior side lot line of 2.7 meters, and the bylaw requirement is 4.5 meters. Eric, can I confirm that notice was served and have any responses been received?
Yes, notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, great. For the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to the 3 conditions as outlined in the staff report. Those conditions are that the owner applicant obtain approval of site plan application SP 6-22 to the satisfaction of the town, or this decision shall become null and void. 2, that the subject variance shall become null and void once the additional lands to the east are conveyed to the owner, Grandview Children's Center, and legally merged on title with the subject lands as per the land division application LD 039-2022. And 3, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And you've received a copy of this staff report?
Yes, I reviewed the report and its conditions, and I am in agreement to it.
Okay, and did you have any anything that you wanted to add to the committee for this application?
No.
Okay, and to the committee, did anybody have any questions for the applicant or staff? Cecil? Oh, okay. Cecil first.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I was wondering whether the applicant can give us an overview of the reason for the minor variance, just a brief reason for the overview, and this may include any presentation that they may have available to them.
I'm happy to answer that. So the proposed building will be a setback of 2.7 meters, which does not comply to the minimum setback of the 4.5 meters, which was permitted through a previous minor variance, application number A2-21. And this is a result of changes to the development proposal and the anticipated acquisition of additional lands to the east.
Thank you. Through the chair, I was wondering whether the applicant has some video presentation, short video presentation that they brought to the meeting that they would like to show. It should be very short if one is available, just to get a top-down appreciation for what this minor variance looks like in terms of the overall scheme of things.
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And if I may, Madam Chair, can the applicant explain, this is nothing to do with the minor variance in front of us, but I was wondering whether they could take a minute to explain briefly the programs and services that will be offered at this location.
I am happy to direct that question to Lorraine, if you don't mind answering that question.
Certainly, thank you very much. And thank you so much for the question and interest in Grandview Children's Center. We, as you may know, have been operating in Durham Region for almost 70 years. It will be 70 years next year. And over that time, we have expanded services dramatically, and probably in our history, no more dramatically than in the last 5 years. So we are a center that offers services to children with developmental, communication, and physical needs, children with disabilities who require support, across a range of programs and services starting from birth all the way through to the age of 21. And at this new facility, it will be our headquarters facility. We will be focused on all of those services, including the typical kind of rehabilitation services like physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech language pathology, social work, and of course, our growing autism program, which includes behavioral supports for children, as well as many recreation and therapeutic programs that really encourage belonging for children and inclusion. And finally, at this new headquarters, we will have a pediatric center of excellence focus with our medical staff. We are very fortunate to have 4 developmental pediatricians, which are experts in pediatric development, and they will be offering, in partnership with a number of specialists, a range of clinics and specialized supports, such that children and their families who live in Durham Region will not have to travel to Sick Children's Hospital for some very specialized services. So we're really excited about the opportunity to headquarter for this long-held dream. It's been 14 years for us to get to this point, to bring these services and supports to all of the families across Durham Region who require it. In addition, it will be a point for our staff to gather. One of the things you may know is we also offer school-based rehabilitation programs. So we have a number of therapists whose workspace is actually out in the schools, working in the classrooms, and they need touchdown space. They need space to be able to work with their other colleagues, to work on their professional development, and that will be another feature of the location. We also are really excited about what this incredible CFC team have done in creating beautiful outdoor spaces. And so you may recall the woodlot from the donation of land from the town of Ajax will become a beautiful sensory trail. And there are some lovely outdoor playground spaces and use spaces. And I would comment that the reason for this variance actually relates to some of the beautiful outdoor spaces. And by having this variance, it really reduces what the architects call pinch points, I hope I get that right, and allows us to really make much better use and function of some of those beautiful outdoor spaces for the children and their families.
Great. Thank you for that explanation. Cecil, did you have any further questions?
That's incredible. Thank you very much for that explanation. And through you, Madam Chair, I was wondering whether I can ask one last question. So what's the target date for bringing these services to fruition?
The target date is May 2024.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecil. Wasif, did I see that you had a question?
Yes, Madam Chair. Through you to most likely the town staff. So if I boil this down in a nutshell, the minor variance application is nearly, I'll use the word temporary in nature. If the land conveyance happens, then this goes away. Is that fair?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yep, that's exactly correct.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I also have a question to staff as well. The previous application that came to us, the A2-21, there was a few conditions that were on that application. Have those conditions been met, or are they still in the process of being met?
Madam Chair, those are still conditions that are in the process of being met that ultimately have to be met prior to site plan approval.
So those conditions will stay on the table, and then the condition in today's application are on top of what already exists.
Correct. Yeah, they run concurrently. They don't jeopardize each other.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, any other questions from committee at all? Seeing none, is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak either for or against this application? Okay, seeing none, can I please look for a motion on the application? Wasif, I'll get you to do the motion, please.
Absolutely. Madam Chair, I'd like for the committee to move on application A2622 for Grandview Children's First Consortium on the basis that it is minor in nature, meets the 4 tests, and subject to the 3 conditions as outlined in the staff report dated September 20th, 2022.
Perfect. And a seconder? Thank you very much, Cecil. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may I have all those in favor of the motion? Okay, great. So application A 26-22 has been approved and subject to the 3 conditions as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. Thank you very much, everybody from Grandview. Appreciate that little bit of information as well. It's going to be a great facility. We are now going to move on to application A 28-22 for 295 5th Concession Road, and that is being submitted by Solid Structures Design. And the variance that is being requested is to permit a total maximum ground floor area of 77.0 meters squared for all accessory buildings and structures. And the bylaw requirement is 60 meters squared. Eric, can I confirm if notice has been served and if any responses have been received?
Notice was served and no responses were received.
Great. For the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application, subject to 5 conditions as outlined in the staff report. Those 5 conditions are that the subject variance apply only to the property municipally known as 295 5th Concession Road and the accessory building as illustrated on the drawing submitted with this application, or this decision shall become null and void. That the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. 3, that the accessory building is to be used in accordance with section 4.1.12 of the zoning bylaw 95-2003 as amended. 4, that the owner applicant provide the outstanding application processing fee for the minor variance application prior to the issuance of a building permit. And 5, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building service section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here, and have you received a copy of this staff report?
Yes, I'm here and I received this report.
Okay, great. If I can ask you to please introduce yourself and if you have any comments that you would like to make about the application.
Yes, I'm Annette Kosian. I'm with Solid Structures Design, and I've prepared the building permit drawings and the minor variance drawings for this application. We already submitted the permit applications to Terry. I believe she's the CBO. I have not received any response on any further comments on the drawings. I believe they are still reviewing it. And I believe the client has made all the payments, although we were advised that our minor variance application fee doubled since it's an already built structure. And in that case, the fee doubles. I didn't have a chance today to follow up with him if he had a chance to go to the township and catch up on the payments, but he is pretty good making payments on time. So I don't know if you can see it on your records, if there's any outstanding balance to be paid or not yet.
Okay, staff will look into that part of it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, is there anyone from committee who would like to ask any questions of the applicant or staff in regards to this application? Not sure.
No, pretty straightforward for me, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Sorry, Cecil, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
I was in concurrence with my committee member there. I do not have any questions.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Is there anybody in attendance here to speak either for or against this application? Okay, seeing none, can I look for a motion on application A 28-22? Cecil,
Madam Chair, I move to approve minor variance application A/22 for 295 Fifth Concession Road, subject to all staff conditions as it is minor in nature, desirable and appropriate for the intended use and development of the lands, and it's in keeping with the general intent of the bylaws and the official plan. I move to approve.
thank you. And a seconder? Thank you, Wasif. Any discussion on the motion at all? Seeing none, can I please ask for a vote? All those in favor of approving the motion for A 28-22? Okay, that is carried. Application A 28-22 has been approved, subject to the 5 conditions as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to move on to application 29-22 for 2995D Seabreeze Road, and it is being submitted by Victor Arkai, and I apologize if I said that wrong. The variances that are being requested with this particular application is to permit a maximum lot coverage of 44%, and the bylaw requirement is 33%. Eric, has notice been served and have any responses being received?
Notice was served and there was correspondence received, which was provided to the committee.
Okay, we received two correspondence from you. For the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to 2 conditions as outlined in the staff report. Those 2 conditions are that the owner applicant obtain site approval for site plan application SP 7-22 to the satisfaction of the town, or this decision shall become null and void. And 2, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building service section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here? Do we have the applicant for application A2922 here? Victor, I do see your name on the screen, Victor. Are you able? There you go.
Yes.
Okay, Victor, have you received a copy of the staff report?
Yes.
Okay, if you can introduce yourself and give us any information in regards to this application.
Okay, my name is Victor Aki. We just did a, 44% so that to accommodate the design that's already the architectural design. So the property is still going to align with the other properties on the street. We did not ask for all the zonal bylaws, the external, the exterior, interior setbacks, the frontal setbacks, all of them remain the same. So it's not really going to affect other houses at the side. The 44% is just because we compromised. The backyard is not going to be smaller, that's all. But it's going to line up with all the houses on the street, on the front side.
Okay, thank you very much. To committee, does anybody have any questions for either the applicant or staff? Cecil?
Through you, Madam Chair, I have a question for staff. So within the general Seabreeze Road area, how common is this type of minor variance? That's the question.
Through you, Madam Chair. This variance has become very common in the last several years just due to the redevelopment that happens in Pickering Beach. I think in the last couple of years, we've done like probably over 10 variances just for lot coverage. Even earlier this year, there was an exact same percentage variance. I believe it was 44%, but we have done other ones in the high 30s and early 40s as well.
Okay, so it's fairly common. It's just this is not that this is standing out on its own or it's being the first of its kind. There's precedence to this.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecil. Any other comments or questions from committee? Wasif?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the staff. So I believe in the report, I think that I also read was that the true or the immediate nature of the build is only going to cover roughly about 42%, and the other 2-ish percentage is allocated for the future should the client want to or the resident want to build an accessory structure, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. The extra 2% is just a result of rounding up and adding some additional space to accommodate the accessory structure.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from committee for either the applicant or staff?
Let's have a question.
Okay, I think my question was answered with Wasif's question there. So is there anybody in attendance who would like to speak either for or against this particular application A29-22? Don't think we have anybody online. Can I please look for a motion on application A29-22? Wasif.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the committee approve application A2922 for 2955D Seabreeze Road on the basis that it is minor in nature, meets the 4 tests, and subject to the 4 conditions as outlined in the staff report dated September 28, 2022.
Thank you very much. And a seconder on the motion. Thank you very much, Cecil. Any comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving application A29-22? Okay, so A29-22 has been approved subject to the 2 conditions as outlined in the staff report in the 20-day appeal period. Thank you very much. And we are now moving on to application A44-22 for 2A Grayson Road. And the application is being submitted by Michael Robertson. The variances that are being requested is to permit uncovered steps leading to a below grade entrance within the east interior side yard with a minimum setback of 0.3 meters from the interior side yard lot line. The bylaw requirement is that uncovered steps are not permitted within interior side yard, and the 1.2 meters, a minimum setback from an interior side yard. Eric, has notice been served?
Notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, great. For the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to 4 conditions as outlined in the staff report. Those conditions are that the subject of variance apply only to the property municipally known as 2A Grayson Road, as illustrated in figure 2, or this decision shall become null and void. 2, that an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel to and from the uncovered steps be maintained at all times on the subject property, or this decision shall become null and void. 3, that the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. And 4, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building service section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Yes,
Okay, and you've received a copy of the staff report?
I have.
Okay, and would you please introduce yourself and give us any information in regards to this application?
My name is Michael Robertson. I am the owner at 2A Grayson Road. And this application is one to reduce the distance and proximity to the entrance from the front yard. And 2, we have promised to adhere to, or will adhere to, the conditions and make sure that the requirements are met. We applied for this because of in consultation with the architect and the engineer, and they recommended or suggested that would be the best place to put the entrance, and we went with that.
Okay, thank you very much. To committee, does anyone have any questions either for the applicant or for staff in regards to this application? Seeing none, is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to either for or against this application? Okay, seeing none, can I please look for an motion on application A44-22? Wasif.
Madam Chair, I'd like to the committee to move on application A44-22 on the basis that it is minor in nature, meets the 4 tests, and subject to the 4 conditions as outlined in the staff report dated September 28th, 2022.
Thank you very much. And do I have a seconder? Thank you very much, Cecil. Any comments on the motion at all? Any discussion on the motion at all? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving application A44-22? And that is carried. So A44-22 has been approved subject to the 4 conditions as outlined in the staff report and to the 20-day appeal period. Thank you very much. And we are now moving on to application A45-22 for 49 Sherwood Road East. And the application is presented by Danny Cavazon. And I apologize if I said that incorrectly. The variances that are being requested is to permit a minimum setback from the east interior side lot line of 1.2 meters, and the bylaw requirement is 1.8 meters, as well as a relief to permit a maximum driveway width of 10 meters, and the bylaw requirement is 7.8 meters. Eric, can I confirm if notice was served?
Notice was served and no correspondence was received.
Okay, great. For the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of the application subject to 4 conditions as outlined in the staff report. The 4 conditions are that the subject of variance apply only to the property municipally known as 49 Sherwood Road East and as generally illustrated on the drawing submitted with the application, or this decision shall become null and void. 2, that the owner applicant submit a tree inventory and preservation plan to identify any necessary tree protection zones and mitigation measures to ensure that the preservation of the existing trees located in the rear yards of the abutting properties to the east, specifically 7 and 8 Hewison Court. 3, that the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. And 4, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Yes,
And you've received a copy of the staff report?
we did, yes.
Okay, if I can ask you to please introduce yourself and let us know any comments you have on the application.
Sure. I'm Danny Cavazon and I live at 49 Sherwood Road East. We've been residents here for over 20 years. The purpose for this application is we're adding an addition. Due to the design and layout, our side yard setback had to be designed to 1.2 meters. I've reviewed the report and the conditions. I have no problem meeting all those conditions. I do want to note that on Sherwood Road East, there's approximately 25 homes there. This development is, most of these houses were built in the 50s, early 60s. And out of the 25, there's about 15 that have side yard setbacks, normally related to the garage, 1 or 2 to the house that have a side yard setback, probably 1.2 meters to as low as 0.6 meters. And they vary, but usually just on one side of the property. Yeah, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you for that, for pointing that out. Does anybody from committee have any questions for the applicant or for staff? Cecil.
Through you, Madam Chair. So in the comments section of my question is to staff. In the comment section of the application, Design Services is saying that the owner applicant shall obtain consent from the abutting property owners if impacts are anticipated to the existing trees. And the question is this consent a formal written consent, or is it just a handshake type of an agreement?
Through you, Madam Chair, it would just be a consent letter. So, I mean, not a formal agreement, but something in writing.
Okay, and is this consent letter something that's standard form from the town of Ajax, or is it just between the parties? Just to clarify the point, really. For the
There's no standard template that the town provides, but it is a letter that we ask for the owner to provide to us. And sometimes it's done via email, sometimes it's like an actual letter. But yeah, there's no template that the town provides.
And is that a precondition for approval then?
Yeah, condition number 2, condition number 2 speaks to the fact that they need to do that to preserve the trees. And then as a result of submitting that tree inventory preservation plan, if from that it results with impacts, well, then that's subsequently something that would have to be done. So the way condition number 2 is, it covers it.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Cecil. Any other questions from committee for staff or the applicant? I have a question, and it's similar to my colleagues, what he just asked. So condition number 2, normally at the end of the wording of all the conditions, it says if that condition isn't done, then it becomes null and void. Number 2 does not have that wording in there. So if the owners of 7 and 8 Hewison did not give permission for, or whatever the discussion is, what they need to provide, if they did not do it, not having those words shall, or this decision shall become null and void, does that make it kind of, going back to what my committee member said, just a handshake? It's not really a real requirement.
So yeah, it wasn't captured, but there was no specific reason, to be honest. I think it may have just been an oversight on staff's end. At the end of the day, they need to submit that preservation plan. And if there is going to be impacts, well, that's going to be an issue for staff. So ultimately, we have kind of the leverage on them to, force them to do that. So I don't I mean, the committee can, if they choose to, add that in, but I don't think it's a make or break.
Okay, thank you very much. And just as a side note, I do like that that is a condition that the trees need to be saved. So thank you to staff for that. Any other questions from committee?
You presenting that condition, I'm seconding that. To be a
So when we get to the motion, when we do the motion, if whoever does the motion, if they wanted to amend the conditions, then we can do it at that time.
Go right ahead, Madam Chair.
Okay. First, I'll see, seeing if there's no further questions from committee, I'll reach out to see if there's anybody in attendance who would like to speak either for or against this application. Okay, seeing none, if I can look for a motion on the application. Can I do a motion? Even though I'm the chair, can I do a motion on this?
Through the chair, you would have to step aside from the role of the chair and have somebody step in as acting chair if you wish to make a motion.
Okay, it's not that important. Not that it's not that important, but I don't need to do that. Thank you very much, Sarah. Wasif.
Madam Chair, I'd like to propose that the committee move on application A4522 with a slight edit on condition number 2, which should read, I'll read the whole thing, that the owner applicant submit a tree inventory and preservation plan to identify any necessary tree protection zones and mitigation measures to ensure the preservation of the existing trees located in the rear yards of the abutting properties to the east, 7 and 8 Houston Court, with the addition that, or this decision shall become null and void.
Okay, can I have a seconder on the amended motion? Thank you, Cecil. So any discussion on the amendment? None. So can I have a vote? All those in favor of the amended motion? Okay, so the amended motion is passed. So now I'm going to ask for someone to go back to the motion, and we're going to have someone to motion accepting the entire conditions as a whole. Wasif, and can I have a seconder on that? So it's the amended conditions. Thank you. Any discussion on that? And all those in favor of approving the entire application with all the conditions as amended? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Application A45-22 has been approved subject to the 4 conditions, one of which has been amended as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our final application for this evening is A46-22 for 250 Roslyn Road East, and it is being submitted by Gagnon Walker Domes Limited. And again, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. The variances being requested is to permit a maximum of 24% of the proposed parking supply in the front yard between Street H and future Penn Gaskell Drive and buildings A and B, provided that the spaces are used for visitor parking and are arranged in 2 roads. The bylaw requirement for that is that it is to be a maximum of 20% of the required spaces used exclusively for visitor parking. The next relief requested is to permit a minimum parking rate of 1 parking space per 22.0 meters squared of gross floor area. The bylaw requirement, for anybody who's interested, a more detailed of what that requirement is, if you looked at page 5 of the staff report, it gives the various rates depending on what the use is for what the bylaw existing is. And the third variance requested is to permit a minimum setback from the front lot line, the future Penn Gaskell Drive, of 5.7 meters, and the bylaw requirement is 9 meters. Eric, has notice been served?
Notice was served and no correspondence was received.
Okay, great. And for the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to 3 conditions as outlined in the staff report. And those conditions are 1, that the following uses under the prestige employment zone and exemption 163 be prohibited on the subject lands, or this decision shall become null and void. The prohibition is for banquet facility, place of assembly, and a place of entertainment. 2, that the owner applicant obtain approval of site plan application SP2-18 and enter into a site plan agreement with the town to the satisfaction of the town, which secures for transportation demand management measures as recommended in the parking justification study dated August 25th, 2022, prepared by WSP Canada Inc. to the satisfaction of the town, or this decision shall become null and void. And 3, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Yes, present.
Okay, and you received a copy of the staff report?
Yes, we have.
Okay, if I can please ask you to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of information about your application.
Sure thing. I do have a presentation prepared, so I'm just going to share my screen.
Okay.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nick Dewan. I'm a junior planner at Gagnon Walker Domes Ltd. With me to the left is Richard Domes, principal planner at Gagnon Walker Domes Ltd. And we are planning consultant and agent for 235-3662 Ontario Limited, the registered owner of the property municipally known as 250 Rosslyn Road East in the town of Ajax. Also on the line is my client's transportation planning consultant, Mr. Dave Lukasich of WSP, who is here to answer any questions that pertain to parking.
Okay.
So
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the property, which is shown in the red outline on your screen, is located at the northwest corner of Rosslyn Road East and Salem Road. The property is currently vacant. For a little bit of a background context, the draft plan of subdivision for the property was previously approved in 2011, and the final plan of subdivision for the property was recently registered in August 2022. The purpose of the plan of subdivision for the property is to create a series of development blocks, 2 new public roads, and open space blocks. So to that end, the property and its individual blocks, as shown on the screen, are proposed to be developed in phases. So phase 1 of the development of the property consists of block 2 of registered M plan 40M2737, which is shown in the light blue outline on your screen. And that block is subject to the minor variance application today. So block 2 measures approximately 2.94 hectares and has frontage along Salem Road North and Pengasco Drive. So on your screen is just a little bit of a closer view of block 2. So concurrent with the plan of subdivision for the property is also a site plan approval application, which was submitted to the town in 2018 to facilitate the development of block 2. Since then, there have been 5 resubmissions of the site plan application. The 5th and final submission was submitted to the town in May 2021. Following that submission, Town of Ajax planning staff have confirmed that the final site plan submission had satisfied all town circulation comments, with the exception of the Committee of Adjustments approval of the minor variances being requested in this application. Pursuant to the final site plan submitted to the town in May 2021, the Block 2 lands, which are shown on your screen, are proposed to be developed for a multi-building employment generating development, which consists of 7 commercial buildings and are comprised of a total gross floor area of approximately 7,145 meters. The proposed buildings have been sited along the existing Salem Road and future Pengascal Drive street lines to provide appropriate street relationships and a strong gateway presence at this future intersection. All buildings on the site are proposed to be 1 story in height, with the exception of buildings A and B, which are shown on the left-hand side of the site plan, which are 2 stories in height as a result of the significant topographic challenges within building 2. We had to use a 2-story building height for these buildings to assist with site grading. So from the internal view of the site, buildings A and B will read as 2 stories, but if you were to look at these buildings from future Pengascal Drive, they will read as 1-story buildings. An 11-meter landscape strip is provided along Salem Road, which features some dense vegetation as well as landscape features as well. And a minimum 3-meter landscape strip is also provided along future Pengascal Drive, which increases approximately to 6 meters of a landscape strip once you reach in front of building C. A total of 336 parking spaces are proposed to accommodate the commercial buildings, which are primarily organized within the central parking lot, which is screened from the boundary streets by the proposed buildings and the landscaped areas. So parking areas along Salem Road have been limited, and a small parking area is located between buildings A and B, as well as the terminus of Pengascal Drive. And this is just to provide direct and convenient parking for the upper level units of building A and B that don't necessarily have direct access to the central parking area. Just on your screen is a colored version of the landscape plan, which shows the extensive perimeter and internal landscaping that's been provided, as well as the enhanced landscaping that's been provided at the intersection of Salem Road and Pengascal Drive. Moving on to the minor variances. As part of this application, 3 minor variances are being requested, which are intended to apply to these lands only, as shown on your screen. The requested minor variances pertain to a front yard setback and parking. The first minor variance is to permit a minimum setback from the front lot line of 5.7 meters. So this requested relief from the setback requirements from future Pengascal Drive, or the front yard setback, is limited to only building C, which is shown on the top right hand of the site plan. Building A and B comply with the minimum front yard setback requirement of 9 meters. The reduced front yard setback, 5.7 meters, advances a more appropriate urban street wall condition at that intersection with building D. And the proposed street wall condition along Pengascal Drive is further enhanced by pedestrian walkways, as well as hard and soft landscape features. The second minor variance is to permit a minimum parking rate or blended parking rate of 1 parking space per 22 square meters of GFA. In consideration of the various uses permitted within the development, a parking rate should be established here to provide certainty that the level of parking provided through the approved site plan will consistently meet peak site demands. The proposed blended parking rate represents only a 13 parking space reduction from the bylaw standards, and this has been supported through a detailed parking justification by WSP. The third minor variance is to permit a maximum of 24% of the proposed parking supply in the front yard, and provided that the spaces are used for visitor parking and are arranged in 2 rows. So it's our opinion that providing sufficient and convenient access to parking is necessary within the front yard of building A and B, just to ensure that there is a long-term viability and success of the upper level commercial units in these buildings, as well as the employment function of the site as a whole. Once again mentioned, a minimum 3-meter landscape buffer is also provided along future Pengascal Drive, which will appropriately screen this parking area from the streetscape. And lastly, the total of 24% of the overall parking within the minimum, within the front yard represents only a 4% increase over the permitted 20% of the parking spaces in the zoning bylaw. So it's our opinion that the proposed minor variances meet the following 4 tests of conforming to the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, that they are desirable and appropriate for the area, and that they are minor in nature and can be supported from a land use and policy perspective, and that they do represent good planning. So we have reviewed the staff report supporting the requested variances, as well as the suggested conditions of approval. And we are in agreement with the conditions recommended by town staff. And we respectfully request that the Committee of Adjustment support the proposed minor variances. So at this time, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And we note that our transportation planner, Mr. Lukasich, is also available at this time to answer any questions as they pertain to parking. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. If I can ask a favor on your presentation, if you can go back to the slide, I don't know if any of my colleagues are going to want to refer to these slides at all, but the slide that show, if you can go back, I think it might be 3 slides back. Not that one, this one. Okay, if we can just leave it there, and then I'll open it up to, unless my colleagues need to see the staff report, I'll open it up to my colleagues to see if there's any questions for the applicant or staff. Wasif?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the applicant as a representative. The minor variance in terms of parking, knowing the fact that there's a range of different parking rates for different types of tenants and line uses, etc. How do you foresee if you get, let's say 2 tenants or possible businesses wanting to lease space that both have a very high rate of parking usage? How is that determination being made?
So, through you, Mrs. Chair, what we have done in our parking analysis, we've considered shared parking because different line uses peak throughout different parts of the day. So we used a scenario of likely land uses based on what has been identified on the site plan. And through shared parking, it achieves a reduction of 13 spaces from the bylaw requirements. And that doesn't take into account the proposed travel demand management measures. So with proposed travel demand management measures, we anticipate that there would be a further reduction in parking demands.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do you have any further questions, Wasif, at all?
I may boomerang and come back, please.
Okay, okay. Any questions? Cecil, did you have any questions at all?
Yes. Through you, Madam Chair, to the applicant, I was just wondering about the process used to come up with the required amount of accessible parking, for example, in any particular type of tenancy that that might exist on this development. How did you go about determining that now, or is that something that will be considered in the future?
Through the chair, staff can answer that one. Accessible parking isn't impacted by the rate. We look at enforcing the AODA Act for accessible parking requirements.
Okay.
And Yeah, so it's just regardless of how much parking you're providing, there's a percentage of it that has to be made for barrier-free parking spaces. So the site plan has been reviewed to ensure that it has that correct amount. So the rate doesn't have an impact on that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any further questions from Wasif?
As promised, here I am. Madam Chair, through you back to probably town staff this time. Can you remind the committee whether there's any on-street parking available on Penn-Gaskell Drive?
Through the chair, well, the road doesn't exist yet, so I'm not entirely sure what the intentions are. It will just be a local street, so I'd assume, yeah, there would be the ability to park on the street. Most local roads do allow for on-street parking. However, that's still in accordance with our bylaw. You know, you can only park for so many hours, consecutive hours, no overnight parking, that type of thing.
Right, but a possible relief valve, if you will, once the building's constructed and if it is allowing on-street parking.
Correct. Yeah, there wouldn't be like designated actual spaces.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would have the ability to park on the street if you had to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions from committee at all? Okay, so I had a couple of I have a couple of questions. So I'm also going to comment on the parking question. So according to the report, it's in there saying that according to the formula, 336 spaces are required. Is that 336 what the bylaw dictates, or is that the amount that is going to go into this property?
Madam Chair, the 336 is what's been proposed in relation to the rate.
So then it technically bylaw is saying it should be 13 parking spots more than that 336.
Correct.
Okay. So the reason why I asked to go on to this particular screen, I know 13 spots doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but this particular area of Salem Road, and when you're looking at this map, when you look at this future road, they both have really good bends on them that potentially could be dangerous for people who can't park in this lot and may go across the street to the plaza that already has additional parking needs that are going to be on demand of that plaza. And then on the other side where Penn-Gaskell is, there's the high schools and so forth there. So I just worry about the amount of pedestrian traffic on those roads and people not being able to park there. And it just seems like it could be a recipe for disaster. So that concerns me a little bit as far as that goes. I'm trying to find it in the staff report. It refers to this location being on page 50 in the surrounding land uses. It says the subject lands are located at the southwest corner. Should it be northwest corner? Am I like even visualizing the right space?
You are correct. That is a mistake.
Okay, so it should be that part. I think, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes.
Sorry, it's because it says feature Penn-Gaskell, not, I think you were thinking Roslyn and Salem?
Yes.
Yeah, no, the comment says the corner of Salem Road and the future road. That's
the southwest corner of Salem Road and the future. So we're going below that. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions that I had as well. Does committee have any further questions? So I had another question. Okay, is anybody in attendance would like to speak either for or against this application? I just see one other person there, and I don't think it's this application. Can I please look for a motion on this application? There's no further comments. Cecil.
Madam Chair, I move to approve minor variance application A4622 in its entirety, submitted by Young and Walker Domes Limited on behalf of 2353662 Ontario Limited, subject to all staff conditions as it is minor in nature, desirable and appropriate for the intended use of the lands, and it's in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaws. I move to approve.
Thank you very much. And a seconder? Thank you very much, Wasif. Any discussion on the motion at all? Seeing none, may I ask for all those in favor of approving application A46-22? Okay, we are carried. So application A46-22 has been approved, subject to the 3 conditions as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. Thank you very much. And we are at the end of our application portion of tonight's meeting. So people, if you're here for applications, you're free to leave now. And we will move on to number 6 of the agenda, which is other business. Does anybody have any other business they want to add? See none, I will look for adjournment. Thank you very much, Wasif, a seconder. Thank you very much, Cecil. All those in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience, everybody.